Week 21. Day 141, on punctuality. A person who cannot keep appointments on time, cannot keep scheduled commitments, or cannot stick to a schedule cannot be trusted in other ways either. Dan Kennedy. Punctuality is another facet of a self-disciplined person, while tardiness is often a sign of a preference toward immediate gratification. A person who's late doesn't give themselves a margin to arrive on time, so they get the instant gratification of gaining a few minutes of time at the expense of straining their relationship or their chances of making a good first impression. Meanwhile, a person who arrives earlier might lose a couple of minutes, but in the long haul enjoys the reputation of being a punctual, trustworthy person. If you're often late, realize that being late to an appointment doesn't differ from breaking a promise. It's still an act that can cost you the trust of another person. In addition to that, it demonstrates that you lack organizational skills and self-discipline. Is this the message you want to display to the world? Is being late something that will help you realize your full potential or stand in your way? Set a new self-discipline challenge for yourself. Resolve to always be at least 5 minutes early for every appointment in the next 30 days. After a full month, it should become a new norm for you, and you should benefit from improved relationships, as well as newly gained self-respect for having developed the reputation of being a punctual person. Day 142, on Keystone Habits. Typically, people who exercise, start eating better and becoming more productive at work. They smoke less and show more patience with colleagues and family. They use their credit cards less frequently and say they feel less stressed. Exercise is a keystone habit that triggers widespread change. Charles Duhigg. A keystone habit is a habit that results in other positive changes in your life without directly focusing on them. For example, the decision to start exercising will affect your diet, productivity, patience, and overall well-being. Instead of focusing on several different habits, you can concentrate on making one change and, as if by magic, it will lead to other improvements that are introduced virtually without effort. If you want to get the best return on your efforts, focus on establishing keystone habits first and only work on other routines when you already have established the keystone habits as habits. Some keystone habits include regular exercise, making your bed every morning, tracking what you eat, saving money, meditation, waking up earlier, expressing gratitude, regularly getting enough quality sleep, trying a new thing every day. Day 143, on falling in love with the idea of starting. What was the use of doing great things if I could have a better time telling her what I was going to do? F. Scott Fitzgerald. There's an inherent danger in sharing with everybody what you're going to do. You might fall in love with the idea of starting something at the expense of actually doing it. Telling others about your plan can be addictive because it delivers a reward without you having done any meaningful work. You boast about what you're going to do, people are impressed, and you get a sense of accomplishment. For example, I used to talk about starting to travel more, but whenever I was faced with an opportunity to go on a trip, I was scared. It was easier and more pleasant to talk with my friends about all the exciting places I would go to. Today, while I still feel some resistance prior to going on a trip, particularly a more demanding adventure, such as visiting an exotic country, I almost never talk about my plans until I actually book the flights and the trip converts from being a wish into becoming a real-world action. Are there any goals of yours that you started working on a long time ago, but which in fact still remain in the realm of unmaterialized plans? An easy way to figure this out is to think of your recent conversations and find a topic that you frequently talk about, but never actually act upon. Day 144, on the work of a human being. In the morning when thou risest unwillingly, let this thought be present: I am rising to the work of a human being. Why then am I dissatisfied if I am going to do the things for which I exist and for which I was brought into the world? Or have I been made for this, to lie in the bedclothes and keep myself warm? But this is more pleasant. Dost thou exist then to take thy pleasure, and not at all for action or exertion? Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius argues that we haven't been made for embracing the comfort of a warm bed. Is sleeping in more pleasant than doing work? Obviously it is, otherwise nobody would ever do it. Yet sleeping in is only more pleasant in the beginning or when you've earned it. Making your life revolve around comfort and laziness doesn't lead to happiness in the long term, it leads to depression. Taking action and exerting yourself rarely feels good at first, but upon completing valuable work, the pleasure of sleeping in can hardly match the pleasure of being productive. The most powerful proof of the fact that human beings cannot thrive if they don't act and exert themselves is the research on retirement. For example, according to a report published by the Institute of Economic Affairs in association with the Age Endeavor Fellowship, retirement increases your risk of clinical depression by 41% and the probability of having at least one diagnosed physical condition by 63%. 139. What's more, the adverse effects increase as the number of years spent in retirement increases. Obviously, the effect of retirement depends on how the retired person approaches retirement. Sadly, when facing a new reality in which they no longer have to work, a lot of people stop being active and disengage from life, and that's what leads to the disturbing findings of the study. The ones who feel that their golden years are indeed golden are the ones who continue to be active, whether it's helping their families, volunteering, working part-time, or embracing new hobbies. Whenever you find yourself discouraged, remind yourself that while succumbing to laziness feels good at first, ultimately it will only worsen your situation and make you even less ready to face challenges. Embrace discipline, stay active, constantly grow, and you'll find both fulfillment and meaning in life. Day 145, on complicating the world for profit. To earn a fortune in the diet and exercise industries, there is a dictum, complicate to profit. Tim Ferriss. Fitness companies make a fortune on persuading people that exercise or diet is complicated. The same situation applies to the investment world. The more complicated something appears to be, the more people will decide that it's better to hire an expert to help them than do it themselves. Consequently, many don't start at all because they're convinced that they'll fail without help, and help, whether it's for fitness or in the investment world, is expensive. This provides a legitimate excuse not to start. It also makes you more likely to fall victim to the claims that some product designed by the world's top experts, of course, is a miracle solution. In reality, most things are simpler than you think. You don't need to attend expensive aerobics classes to become fit. There's no need to buy pricey home-delivered meals designed by some renowned doctor to lose weight. An investment advisor can often deliver worse results than if you were to educate yourself with free articles and invest on your own. Whenever you want to make a change in your life and find that everywhere you look, companies involved in the industry make it complicated, step aside and review the fundamentals. Somehow people were still fit before the advent of commercial gyms. They still managed to build successful businesses without internet gurus. It was still possible to eat healthily in a world where bookstores weren't filled to the brim with diet books. Don't use the fact that the industry makes things complicated as an excuse not to make a change. Educate yourself about the basics and draw your own conclusions. For you to make a change in your life, no expensive coach is necessary. Day 146, on decision avoidance. I saw myself sitting in the crotch of this fig tree, starving to death, just because I couldn't make up my mind which of the figs I would choose. I wanted each and every one of them, but choosing one meant losing all the rest, and, as I sat there, unable to decide, the figs began to wrinkle and go black, and, one by one, they plopped to the ground at my feet. Sylvia Plath. Not making a decision is also a decision, and usually the worst one. While you're torn between one choice and another, you're losing time you could have spent taking action, any action, and then figuring out whether it was the right choice or not. People often decide to not decide, or they put off their decisions because of a fear of missing out. Choosing one thing means not choosing another. However, Not choosing either of them means losing both. It's also tempting to avoid making a decision because it creates an illusion that you still have the freedom to choose. And while it's true that you do retain this freedom, there's more freedom in commitment, as it frees you from inertia and gets you closer to determining where you want to go. If you're hesitant about whether you want to pursue a certain goal or not, figure out a low investment way to get started. You can't get much additional insight by waiting for an excessive period of time, while you can gain an immense amount of knowledge by going ahead and testing the waters. Day 147, on walking by your mistakes. Far too often we let little things slide. But just turn on the news and listen as the anchors lament an auto part defect leading to deaths and multi-billion-dollar recalls, or a small leak in a gas pipeline causing an explosion that endangers wildlife. Recognizing when something is wrong, big or small, and holding people accountable can save industries billions and citizens their lives. Sergeant Bowen instilled in me instantly that if you do walk by a mistake, then you just set a new, lower standard. And Dunwoody. When you make an unimportant mistake, there's a temptation to let it go and ignore it. After all, it isn't a big deal, so why bother? If your dishes aren't pristinely clean, it won't change much in the grand scheme of things, and most certainly won't hurt anybody. The problem is that walking by your mistakes sets a precedent of tolerating small errors. You're also missing out on a valuable exercise in self-control, making sure that all that you do is done with the utmost care. I'm the last person to say that from now on you need to make sure that everything that you do is flawless. I'm fully aware that it isn't feasible, and I'd be a hypocrite to say that my favorite tea mug is never entirely free of tea stains. However, whenever you can, try to exercise a little bit of self-control and correct a little thing that you consider unimportant. It can be a small tweak in your posture, making sure that you sit properly in front of the computer. It can be making an effort to speak more clearly and improve your articulation. It can be ensuring that your bed is made properly or slicing a loaf of bread with more precision. I often spend several minutes trying to fix a paragraph that I don't consider up to my standards. In the grand scheme of things, one single paragraph doesn't mean much. However, when the little things are repeated over and over again, it does have an effect on the final outcome and carries the risk of establishing a precedent, in this case, of my being lazy with my writing.